Before we get into it, if you enjoyed these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button, and keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as, investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that.
All right, folks, here we are on Friday, February 21st. We're going to take a look at QBTS today. So D-Wave has been on a bit of a tear lately, or a tear and then very much not a tear. But, it started down here in October, less than $1, zoomed up, and it was at $11 by the end of 2024. So in a matter of about 2.5 months, you could have bought these shares and 10x'd or maybe even 11x'd, and that is wild. However, this day came along and it dropped the stock 36% from those highs, and then another 5%, and then another 33%. So it touched down at 374, as you see here, and then it's been trying to claw back its way through this gap. And the question that I have at the moment is, is it going to come up and fully fill this, or what are we looking at here? It's relatively close, given the volatility of the stock. It's a huge percentage gap to get there still, but it has obviously the volume, right? You see this huge volume still coming in here, and the volatility to get there. So we'll see if it's able to. It had a nice wick up here on this day. That was just yesterday. And then, tried to get some juice going today and just got pushed off that, post $8 level, but moved through a huge range today. It moved from a low of 713 to a high of 822. So over $1 range for a stock that's less than $10. That's an impressive volatility throughout the day. If we zoom in here and take a look, we can see how it's moving off of the levels that we have on the chart, right? Yeah, picking up, consolidating around here, wrestling with this, reconfirming support on that 668, moving up to and through the 759, and then drawing back down a little after it tried to push sort of toward that 850, but definitely didn't have the sea legs to get there today. But the levels as I see it, the nearest in obviously that 759, that would be a resistance level at the moment. If it does dip beyond that 668, and then that 556 level, which has been all powerful in terms of being able to support the buying pressure, right? So as where folks have really wanted to step in as of late, right, over the last couple of weeks, is at that like $5.50 level. Maybe even down toward the like 5.25 level. But there's been folks really willing to buy there, and then a bunch of folks really willing to sell toward that 6.25 to 650 level. So buy about 5.25, sell about 6.25, and that's sort of what kept it in that range. Now it's popped through there, and if it can keep going through that 759, we have 850 on the chart, 979, and 1144. Now taking a look at where things are on the EMA side of things, the story that this tells, basically, high ride here on the 8 EMA, and then obviously gap down, just pushed it way down toward that 183 EMA, still fixed above that at the moment, and then just consolidated along with the short-term EMA. So all these 821.34 EMAs consolidating along with the price action, like the candlesticks themselves, and everything just kind of catching its breath, reconsolidating where it was consolidating previously below $1. Now it's consolidating in the $5 to $6 range. So huge difference. And the question becomes, is it going to peel back down toward that dollar? Is it going to continue on and repress that 2-digit range that it couldn't hold previously? For the time being, at least, we get now a fresh bullish crossover on all the EMAs. We're back fully in a bullish formation. 821.34 price action riding off of the 8, at least for these last 2 candlesticks. We'll see if that continues to be the case or not. But looking like it has the potential. We'll see how strong the sell pressure comes in. Speaking of sell pressure, short interest coming in quite strong. Recently, I did check the stats on iBorrowDesk to see just how heavy the shorts were coming in. From what I could see, there was a low number of available shares, so like in the tens of thousands of available shares. So that's quite low. And the fee, around 7 or 8%. So the fee to me is just, it's not there yet in order to do something like squeeze the shorts out. But you have sort of two of the factors going for you at the moment in terms of squeezing the shorts out. One, there's seemingly not a lot of available shares to borrow. The stock price is at the moment, on a few day run of going against the short sellers, even with today's little bit of a dip. And but that fee being in the single digits, that's not going to really shake them loose. I would love to see that fee approach triple digits, high like 90, 100, into the hundreds would be phenomenal. If that can happen, then yeah, there might be some juice to be squeezed there. But that's the key missing component as far as I can tell for the time being. Now, shelving, there's a bunch of shelves down here. The flip side that's potentially good for QBTS is, maybe there's thin sell volume up here. That's why I mentioned the short sellers, because organic volume might be relatively thin, but is that sell volume going to come from short sellers? Maybe. But organic volume, at least, for the foreseeable past, right? It just hasn't been up in this range. And so, looking quite thin at the moment and maybe ready and willing, especially if the volume and the interest stays high, there might not be a ton of sell walls up here. We'll see. If you zoom it back out, this thing's starting to look like maybe one big cup. So that could be quite interesting. It's not that far away. If it presses back into the double digits there, it's not that far away from all-time highs. And I mean, it came in at 1323 and then it just shed, right? It shed 17.5% that day, and then dropped almost 33%, and then just continued to get pummeled. Had a few good green days in there, but minus 16.5, minus 29, minus 19. Those are 3 days in a row, and then a minus 36. So that 4-day run just brutalized QBTS for sure. Or I guess it's a 4-week run, so on the weekly. But yeah, zooming out here, starting to look kind of potentially cuppish. I guess if this came back up, it might start to look more like a WE or maybe a cup and handle. But we'll see how it continues to take shape. But that's just to say, that's why it's so thin up here. It's just that previous period where it was briefly in the double digits when it first came on the scene, and then this recent push. Those are really the only time frames that it's spending at that double digit area. So lack of sell walls, maybe. We'll see. But something to maybe consider. A bunch of large-scale orders coming out the last few days, a few coming in and peppering the 5-day period, but yeah, nothing tremendously interesting there to me. Here's maybe one of the more important things to at least consider. 98% of total profited shares proportion as of close yesterday, right? So this is going to be maybe a little bit lower after close today once that gets factored in. But the question then becomes, where's this buy volume going to come, right? Even if there aren't huge sell walls that exist, are some of these folks just going to continuously lock in profit, and that's going to be the sell power, the sell volume that comes in? Maybe. But if some of those large scale orders, maybe some fresh blood comes in, and it can bump volume that way, then potentially. But yeah, I don't know that you're going to get a ton more out of the existing holders. But you will, yeah, if folks are coming in and willing to buy and press, then them selling their shares to folks who are willing to, pay a premium, pay a higher price, then, buy side volume could prevail still. But just something I always think that's at least worth considering when it gets so out of whack like that. There's such a high percent that are profitable. So here's the other thing. Here's how I even got QBTS on my radar. Was, well, one, I saw a one of these news items, sort of clickbaity news items, if you will, but it is triggering on the TTM squeeze indicator, so it is coming up in my scan as well. And it's pushed off today off of the +1 ATR level for February. So +1 ATR at 793. As we know, it moved to and through that today, and then pulled back a little bit. Can it catch a second wave? That's a good question. Certainly, it got very top heavy up here, and then when it peeled back, it didn't turn fully bearish, and so that's quite interesting. And the bullish momentum, seemingly on the histogram at least, starting to slowly but steadily pick up steam, and a pretty lengthy trigger at the moment. So does this set something off? Maybe. Here you had a pretty lengthy trigger. If you take out that like one blip of a green candle there, pretty lengthy trigger, and then a fire, and then a one candle trigger and fire, and then it got set off, right? And so that set off that move from under $1 to over $11. Yeah, tremendous move there, and I'm wondering, can it happen again, right? What is this trigger going to tell us in the future, if anything? Just keep in mind, TTM squeeze indicators looking for an outsized move doesn't mean that it has to come to the upside. It can certainly come to the downside. So it can taketh as well as it giveth. All right, folks, so I hope that your trading week went well, and that you enjoy your weekend. And as always, I appreciate you watching, and I will see you in the next video.